When you retire, you may get a chance to go to football heaven. This is football heaven.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Mission. I'm your host, Jameer Howerton. And as we get ready to celebrate Black History Month here on The Mission, over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to get the opportunity to catch up with some pioneers, some legends, people who have really impacted the game of football. And we hope that you enjoy their amazing stories, because I'm so honored to have the pleasure of sitting down and speaking with them and bringing you these rich and unique stories. Well, today is only fitting, as we kick off the celebration, that I'm here in the Black College Football Hall of Fame Gallery. And I am so honored to be joined by the first. Now, I have to stress this to you. He is the first African-American punter in the National Football League. In all of NFL history, he is the first one to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Mission, Mr. Greg Coleman.
Man, thank you so much. And as I listen to you make that description, now I have to say that there's a caveat. There have been other African Americans who punted in the National Football League, but in terms of that position only, Marlon Briscoe, who was one of the first Black quarterbacks, also punted. A young man by the name of Dave Lewis punted as well. So there are a few others who punted, but in terms of growing up saying, I want to be a punter in the National Football League, I can't think of many others. So when you describe me as a pioneer, that means that you're just old. But, I take it as, my dad was a pioneer. My dad was the first Black salesman in the history of J.C. Penney's in downtown Jacksonville. So he's a pioneer, but I saw how he had to deal with so many different things, so many different cultures, so many different aspects of racism that was prevalent down in the South back during those times. So if I took anything, I took that lesson, some of those lessons on how to deal with and maneuver through society back in the day.
Wow, Mr. Coleman. Well, I can't wait to unpack your story and to dive deep. But first and foremost, a congratulations is definitely in order of being part of the 2021 Black College Hall of Fame class. You're going to be enshrined here in Canton, Ohio, along with your other fellow legends. But when you received that news, tell us the backstory. Where were you? How did you receive it? And just overall, what does it mean to your family, and your football legacy?
I would be remiss and I would be lying if I tell you that it was not an emotional time. I was here back in my home in Florida in Jacksonville, although I'm, commuting back and forth between Minneapolis and in Jacksonville, but we're here in Florida. And I have always seen every year David Baker go and knock on the doors to those finalists for the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I see the range of emotion with those men, because they're in a special fraternity, an elite fraternity of men that nobody can ever take away from you. Right. So when I got the first call from James Shaq Harris, I got to tell you, I had to move the phone away because even as I think about it now, it's emotional. Because that means that someone saw something in you, that you were fit enough to join an elite group of men who played the game of football at a level that was commensurate with being a part of the Black College Football Hall of Fame. And I don't take it lightly. Man, you had to hit me with that one, didn't you, Jamar? Golly. But it means that somewhere you did something that was unique, or you were a part of something that was unique. And it forced me to think about the people that helped me along the way, because nobody gets to the top of the mountain by themselves.
That's
and
right.
If they tell you that, they're lying. So it forced me to go back to think about my Pee Wee, my Pop Warner coaches out at Scott Park back in Jacksonville, Florida. Scott Park was synonymous with great athletes, the LeCounts, the Gaffneys, Dawkins, and then on to Raines High School here in Jacksonville that has produced a couple of legends themselves, a number of legends. I mean, Harold Carmichael, I can say a fellow brother in the Black College Football Hall of Fame, finished from Raines High School. Kenny Burroughs, another legend that finished from Raines High School.
Brian Dawkins.
Brian Dawkins, absolutely. And the list goes on and on and on. And I think about those teachers, those coaches, those principals, and then going on and matriculating up to Florida A&M. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I think about those folks who gave. They didn't have to. And then when I got to A&M, and it was a strange story how I got to A&M, because my high school quarterback, Don Gaffney, was the first Black quarterback at the University of Florida. And Don and I were besties, and we say, hey, man, wherever you go, I'm going. Wherever I go, you go. And Don got his first opportunity to go to the University of Florida. And speaking with other coaches and around the state of some of the major colleges. And I remember one coach saying, Greg, we just got our alumni to the point that their acceptance that we're going to have a Black quarterback. I don't know if I can have a Black kicker. And that stood out. And I said, hey, Cap, you go do what you got to do. And Coach Bobby Lang from Florida A&M came to my house and sat at my mom's table and said, Miss Coleman, we want to offer your son a scholarship. And he can run track, and he can kick footballs. And if he goes to class, he's going to graduate. But Ms. Coleman, we don't have no money to give you to put an addition on the back of your house. We don't have any money to give him a car. We don't have any money to give his girlfriend a scholarship. But if he wants to do those things at Florida A&M, he's welcome to do it. And Mom looked at me, and before I signed, she said, wait a minute, before you sign, she said, Coach Lane, if he goes to Tallahassee, he's going to stay all 4 years. Don't send him back to Jacksonville until he's completed the task. And she looked at me and she said the same thing. And I said, Coach Lane, where do I sign? And it was a phenomenal experience at Florida A&M. And if I had to do it all over again, Jameer, I would do it all over again. It was phenomenal.
That's amazing. I have to go back because you talk about growing up in Jacksonville, and big shout out to the MinnesotaVikings.com. They do a phenomenal job of honoring their heroes of the game. And I read about the story of that your Pee Wee team making it to the championship and not having that opportunity to play at the Gator Bowl. If you could share that story, because I hear the passion and emotion in you, and I really want to know, how did that shape you into the man that you are today? And making that decision.
Yeah, because
that's devastating, Mr. Coleman. That's devastating.
It still bites. Every championship team, whatever level that might be in the city, you play in the Gator Bowl. We went undefeated. We knew we were going to play in the Gator Bowl. We go out, and the coaches had to come back and say, fellas, we're not going to be able to play. And you talk about a lot of ticked off, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. And it was the only reason that we were not allowed to play. It was because of the color of our skin. They said that we weren't going to play a white team or integrate this league. But you had the opportunity to take a picture in the Gator Bowl. I still have my Pee Wee picture of all of my teammates. And as I look to a man, there's not one person smiling on that picture. because of the hurt and the disappointment. I mean, we knew that racism exists. I remember riding in the back of the bus with my grandmama going downtown, even going to visit my dad in J.C. Penney's. I mean, we knew how things were. But man, we didn't know. We thought sports was the microcosm that could cause all of us to come together, because we would go across the track and play the white teams in baseball and basketball and football, without officials, without adults. We knew how to get along. Kids knew how to get along. It was the adults that was having the problems. So that I still bear the scars and the stings of racism growing up here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Right.
I saw how people treated my mom and my dad. They had him downstairs. I shared that he was the first black salesman at J.C. Penney's, but they put him in the basement, down in the corner in work clothes, almost in the back. And I can see all of the people, whether they stopped on the second floor, third floor, or the main floor. They would bring their goods down to the basement to have my father wait on them, because he was the only black salesman at J.C. Penney's. The things that he had to endure, the stuff that he had to take from his other counterparts, because he would win Salesman of the Month, Salesman of the Month, Salesman of the Year. So I saw what he had to go through. And he would always say, he said, son, just be a little bit better. But treat people nice, treat people well, but do what you got to do. And you talk about this, since we're talking about this racism piece, I was a part of, I think, 12 students to integrate a junior high school here in Jacksonville. Man, and it was hell. I got to tell you, every day, along with my older brother. And I remember we went out for the track team, and we made it. And one of the coaches was my homeroom teacher. And he would come in because there were fights every day, man. We stuck together. And I remember this coach saying, hey, telling his homeroom class, you see these two Coleman brothers? Y'all don't bother them. And my brother said, hell no, if you bother one of us, you bother all of us. So that was the bond that we had. And I wish that now that I'm back in Jacksonville, I may even try to pull those group of students together so we can relive, and because we were the catalysts at that very young age. I didn't set out to be a pioneer. I just happened to be in certain circumstances that forced me into those roles.
But you were very clear, though. You were very clear, because you wrote in your high school yearbook, I wanted to be a punter in the National Football League, and your classmates laughed at you and said, man, you out of your mind. There's no black punters. And I love your response. That ain't my problem.
That's right. That's right.
That ain't my problem. I mean, because Jacksonville, I'm sorry.
Because I had people who instill, people talk about words.
Right.
Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
That's
right.
right.
It's a lie from the pit of hell,
Yes.
Because I still remember some of those coaches, those Little League coaches who believed in us. I had parents in the community, in the neighborhood. They believed in us. Baby, kick that ball.
That's right.
Run them hurdles. Do what you need to do. It was a community, and I know that saying, it takes a village, to raise a child. And we had some wonderful villages here. We had some great tribal leaders We had some inspiration in guys like Harold Carmichael, Kenny Burroughs, the late, great Ken Riley, and so many others, because when we were in high school, those guys would come back to Jacksonville, and it would be like a training camp. I mean, you had Harold Carmichael, Kenny Burroughs, Harold Hart, Booby Clark, Lamar Parrish would come down. Sometimes Kenny Anderson would come down. I remember Isaac Curtis coming down a time or two, but it was like an NFL training camp. So we knew what it took, because they took the time to mentor and tutor, to say what it was going to take to get to the next level. And we said, baby, we can't wait to get there. Man, so I owe so much to so many people who believed in us, who poured and encouraged us along the way. So man, I didn't get here by myself. It was so many people who played a part, and I'm so grateful. But yes, I told my high school classmates, even when I got to FAM, you know, I ran a heck of a 40, and you know, damn man, what, you know, you're wide out, you're DB, you're running back. No, I'm a punter and a kicker. Damn, cuz you got too much speed to be a punter and a kicker. But that's what I chose, because I'll take you back. I remember watching a game between the Baltimore Colts, and the Colts used to have the clean white uniforms. And they played in Old Memorial Stadium, and it was muddy and cold. Everybody else was muddy, bloody, and dirty. But I saw the punter come out on the field in a clean white uniform, and he went out, and everybody else was in front of him, and they were protecting him. And he kicked the ball, and he walked back off the field in his clean white uniform. And I said to myself at a very young age, that's what I want to do, and that's what I want to be. And the rest is history.
Wow. Well, let's take a trip down memory lane and talk Florida A&M, a historical Black university, where you really developed your skill set to the point that later we'll talk about how you developed that nickname and who coined you that nickname, but you really developed a unique skill set. Share that story with me, sir.
Well, I had a kicking coach, Pop Kittles, and Pop was also the baseball coach, and Pop was wise beyond his years. And I remember I was out at practice, and I'm hitting him. I mean, having a great practice, and Pop said, well, baby, why are you kicking it to him? I said, well, Pop, that's where he is. He said, well, baby, why are you doing all the work? Why don't you kick it where he ain't? And I said, what? He said, kick it where he ain't. Make him run for it. Make him go to the right. Make him go to the left. And you can get, he said, baby, if you perfect this craft, he said, if you do it on a consistent basis, they'll find a place for you at the next level. And I was stupid enough to believe it. Now, I thought I was better than I really was. And Rudy Hubbard became the coach at Florida A&M, who was recently put in the College Football Hall of Fame. Rudy played a very important part. I remember one day we lost a game to Bethune-Cookman. We were playing down at the old Speedway. I think we lost by 3 or 4 points. And I'm saying, Coach, hey, you know, we got to have a come to Jesus meeting. And we sat down, and Rudy said, Greg, you think you're better than you really are. He said, and you're pretty good on some days. He said, but I got to be able to trust you. I got to be able to depend on you. I got to be able to know that you're going to be consistent enough to hit the 26 yards. Yeah, you can hit the 50-yarder, but if I need a 35-yard field goal, can you do that for me? And Rudy Hubbard taught me about being consistent and being dependable. And from that day on, it reshaped my entire college career. It even reshaped my focus, even going into the pros. So those nurturing times at Florida A&M, and I'll share one more with you. Please. My English teacher was Sadie Gaither, the wife of the legendary coach and athletic director, Jake Gaither, one of the winningest coaches in college football history. And I had a decent game, and I was, in class, and everybody's giving me high fives. And, hey, man, you had a great game. And Miss Gaither didn't know I was on the team. I didn't tell her. So she heard all the commotion, and she said, are you that boy that's been kicking that ball? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, I tell you what. You're not going to be like the rest of them boys from Jacksonville and Orlando and Miami. She said, you're going to graduate. When is your study hall? And I told her. She said, I want you to come to my house every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock to make sure that you get your homework. I said, Miss Gaither, but I go to study hall and I get my class. She said, you heard what I said. Yes, ma'am. So guess what? Every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, I'm in the den of the legendary coach, Jake Gaither. And if you know anything about the den of Jake Gaither, the Rattler's den, there was a big oak tree that was in the middle of the den that went out through the roof. And this is not folklore. And I'm sitting in this den looking at all of the trophies and all the memorabilia. And Jake would come in and he would say, well, yeah, Sadie, what are you doing here? And Sadie would say, Jake, you get your behind on in there and leave this baby alone because he's going to graduate. And I graduated from Florida A&M in 3.5 years because of that nurturing, that tutelage, that kind of encouragement from teachers and coaches and so many others. We had people in the community. I mean, even the ladies in the cafeteria when we would practice late. Even Miss Gladys Lang, the wife of Coach Bobby Lang, who was my track coach, when Bobby kept us too late and the cafeteria was closed, she said, well, baby, come around to the house. And I would go to the house and Gladys would have a big steak and salad. And Bobby would come in and look, Cole, you know I'm going to run that off of your behind, don't you? I said, yes, sir, Coach Lang. But, that's how it was. It was a family, man. It was a family. And we were so rich and so blessed. And I am so much better for having those experiences, to having those people in my life. We went down the street to Reverend Cunningham's church, on Sundays, regardless of what time we got back Saturday night. No matter how late we sat up on the set, we're going to get up and go to church. And Reverend Cunningham accepted us for who we were. Said, come as you are. So all of those areas of college life, A5A, the brothers of Beta Nu, they played a part. So I have so many people to thank for being a part of my history and a part of my legacy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it propelled you to be drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the 14th round in 1976. Talk about that when you received back then the phone call, I assume,
yes.
Because a lot of people didn't go to New York because it was just
right.
a rapid pace, but you received that notice that you're drafted into the NFL. It's real. It's about to go down.
Come on, man. It was the second day. They had 17 rounds back in the day. Okay. And I'm 14. I'm a 14-round draft choice. So I go to Cincinnati, but I felt so much. I felt so good because one of my mentors, Ken Riley, was in Cincinnati. I rode up to training camp with the Rattler. Now think about, out of all of the young men that have come through Florida A&M, out of all the great athletes, Ken Riley was the only one that had the distinction of having the nickname the Rattler. So he was special. Man, and we would talk going up. He was my homeroom teacher. He would come back and he was substitute teacher at Raines and he would pour into me. He said, homeboy, these are some of the things you got to do. Here's some of the things you got to stay away from, because in our mind, being in the pros was a pocket full of money, a big car, and pretty girls on every arm. I said, no, baby, that ain't how you handle your business. Here's what you need to do. So as I was drafted, I went to Cincinnati, and I made the mistake of running the 40 and 4.4 because I think I outran everybody with the exception of Isaac Curtis. And Tiger Johnson was a coach, and Mike Brown and Paul Brown, hey, man, you got a lot of speed, so we're going to try you at wide receiver. Man, I'd never played wide receiver.
Right.
So I'm running fly patterns after fly patterns, and then would have to compete with the other punters and kickers. Case in point, I thought that I was a better kicker than I was punter. But I didn't get a chance to place kick because the Bengals drafted Chris Barr out of Penn State in the second round. I mean, I thought I was kicking circles around Chris. But because I had to compete at wide receiver and then practice afterwards, I didn't really get a chance to compete. Really didn't get a chance to showcase my real abilities because after they tried me at wide receiver, that didn't work out. They said, well, hell, we're going to try you at defensive back. You got so much speed and talent and ability, being a great athlete. We got to find a place for you. I said, man, that's not what I want to do. I'm a punter and a kicker.
Right.
So lo and behold, that didn't work out and I was cut. And I came back to Jacksonville, but because I've got my degree at Florida A&M, I went back and taught school at my high school in Jacksonville, eventually getting a job at another rival high school because they thought that I was going to stay there. But I said, no, I'm going to tell you because I'm leaving soon because I'm going back to the pros. I'm going back. I'm going to give it another shot because that was not my best. That was not the best for me. And I can remember aunts and uncles and former teammates and parents. And, hey, baby, you got to handle your business. I don't know what happened in Cincinnati, but you got to handle your business, man. And I worked out. And I said, all I need is another chance. And Jake Gaither had a relationship with the special teams coach for the Cleveland Browns. His name was Al Tabor. Forrest Gregg was the head coach. I came into Cleveland. Cleveland drafts a punter in the second round by the name of Tom Skladany out of Ohio State. Skladany did not want to punt in Cleveland. He called it the mistake by the lake. Well, his mistake was my fortune because I had one heck of a preseason camp. And Forrest Gregg said, I ran the 40 again, 4.4. Forrest said, Greg, you got a hell of a lot of speed, son. I said, Coach, let me tell you something right now. If you're going to try me at wide receiver and defensive back, just let me go now because I'm a punter. And that happened to me in Cincinnati. And Forrest Gregg looked me square in the eye. Because Forrest Gregg is, you know, he was full blood Ojibwe. So it took a Native American to give an African American a chance to punt in the National Football League. And I took advantage of that opportunity, and I never looked back.
That's amazing.
Although I was let go the following year by Sam Rutigliano because Cleveland goes back in the draft and drafts another punter quarterback in the second round. And that's after leading the entire league with a 49-yard average. And I said, Sam, why don't you let me go now? I know how this thing works. He said, no, the best man is going to get the job. Man, we were Thursday into the regular season, and I get a call. Hey, man, Sam wants to see you. And I said, Sam, I told you, man, I know how this thing goes. He said, well, Greg, I'm sorry. It was out of my hands. I said, okay, just let me go. And I bounced around from team to team, 4 different teams. And each time the coach said, we're going to give this kid another week. And I remember the last time I was in my 9th floor apartment window. We were still in Cleveland. My wife, we were expecting our first child. We're staying on the 9th floor of Park Center, high rise downtown. And you could hear the fans at Memorial Stadium. And I remember watching a game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams on TV. And neither punter was doing well. And I go to my 9th floor apartment window and I open it up and I say, God, I'm ticked at you, man. You said if I prayed, if I said the right things, and if I did the right things, you would give me the desires in my heart. I said, listen, man, I've been doing those things. I didn't try it out with Buffalo and in New England and in San Diego and in Philadelphia. I say, heck, I want to play football. And I say, hell, I want to play football so bad that I'll even play for the Minnesota Vikings. And I closed that 9th floor apartment window and went out that next Monday on a job interview because, you know, money was getting short. I needed a job. This was about the 7th week into the season. When I got home, my wife said, "You remember what you said yesterday? That you'll even play for the Minnesota Vikings?" So yes, she said, "Well, the Vikings called and they want you on a plane and they want you in Minnesota tomorrow." So I go to Minnesota. I said, "Okay, here we go again." But at that point, I needed a job. Jameer. So I go to Minnesota and I kick and I'm punting the heck out of the ball. The other punter is still there, a guy by the name of Mike Woods, great kid, but I'm hitting it. And every afternoon after practice, Bud Grant goes in. So he never sees me punt. So this is, back in the day where they could stash you for 2 or 3 days. So this was Friday afternoon and I said, I got to do something. So the team was at one end of the field, and I took a bag of balls, and I went to the 50, and I put they had 3 garbage cans out. I put one at the goal line, one at the 5, and one at the 10. And I took 10 footballs. And I think I put 2 in the garbage can on the goal line, 1 in on the 5, and 2 in on the 10. And by that time, I'd stopped practice because guys, I'll never forget Ahmad Rashad and Ricky Young and Bobby Bryant. They stopped practice. They said, "God darn, son," and they use a few other adjectives. They said, "Man, how in the ham fat you kick that ball into the garbage can? Boy, you got to have some touch to do that." Thus giving me my nickname, Touch Coleman, for my ability to kick it to the corners. Well, that afternoon, Bud Grant, he goes in like he normally does. I said, "Well, here we go again." We come back for Saturday practice, going through walkthroughs. Bud comes up to me and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. You're punting tomorrow, so you need to go and talk to Mike Lynn, the general manager, and negotiate a contract because you're punting tomorrow against the Green Bay Packers." And that's how I got my shot, the 8th game of the year with the Minnesota Vikings. Wow. Wearing number 8 in the 8th game of the year.
I got goosebumps. Because I'm listening to your struggles early on and having the opportunity to speak to Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon. And he flat out said it that early on, they didn't believe that a black man can play at the quarterback position. And do you feel that they felt like a black man could not punt the ball?
Absolutely. Not only they knew that we could punt. They knew that we could do anything that you had the opportunity to. But because those were positions held for non-black athletes.
Right.
The same thing. Same church, different pew. So I witnessed the struggles that the black quarterbacks went through. Dave Mays was a quarterback at Cleveland. I understand those struggles. And I was in Minnesota when Warren Moon came through, when Dante Culpepper came through. My last year, I finished up with Doug Williams. We would commiserate in the cold tub after practice because I saw the things that he went through.
Right.
The same thing happened to punters and kickers. There's only been a few black kickers in the National Football League. There was only one a couple of years ago, Marquette King from an HBCU school. And Marquette needs to be in the league right now. The kid was all pro, but because he had charisma, because he had bounce, he had style. Well, he shouldn't be doing that. Or man, how are you going to tell a man how to live as long as he's doing his job? He's kicking the ball same way with the black quarterback for so many years. So I am going to establish and put focus on black punters and kickers coming out of HBCU schools. I'm not going to call it the Golden Toe Award. I'm going to call it the Golden Touch Award. And I'm going to support these young men because you need a support system to go to camps, to go to clinics, to harness those skills that you need to make it to the next level. And I'm going to do that. My wife and I, we made that commitment. And, this year, 2021, is going to be the first establishment of the Greg Coleman Golden Toe Award to a HBCU student who has the skill and ability to make it to the next level. All he needs is just a little bit of help, just a little bit of push. And that's what we're going to do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. Giving back because somebody gave you that.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
That's really what it's all about.
It is, the word says, give and it shall be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, running over. And God has blessed me, and the favor of God has been on my life. I have traveled all over the world. A beautiful wife. I mean, my wife and my girlfriend, for 43 years. It's just been an incredible journey. I've got 2 great grandkids, and just a great circle of friends and loved ones, and I couldn't be more ecstatic. So as I entered this hall in June, I'm taking a whole bunch of folks with me.
Come on.
It might be my name, but it's a whole lot of people who have been on this journey and who has been on this train with me, man. So I'm just so blessed to be a part.
Now, I know the fellas at the Minnesota Vikings gave you Touch Coleman, but who gave you Coffin Corner?
That was Howard Cosell.
Now you made it when Howard Cosell gives you a nickname.
Absolutely. And I can remember it so vividly and I remember in the back of my mind the words of Pop Kittles. He said, "Baby, kick it where they ain't. They'll find a place for you at the next level." And they talk about this Coffin Corner. Well, my last name is Coleman. So we said, we kicking it to the Coleman's corner. And Bud Grant would say the same thing. He said, Touch, you're not going to lead the league in Minnesota because we played outdoors. I played outdoors in the frozen tundra for 6 years. And he said, don't worry about leading the league. He said, but baby, if you can give me 44 yards with a 4.4 hang time and a 4.0 return, man, that's all I need. And that was my goal. That's what kept me in the league, because I didn't have the biggest, strongest leg. Reggie Roby came along about 6 years later, and Reggie had a tremendous leg. And for so long, it was only he and I. Reggie and I became so close, and Reggie would even come to Minnesota and do my kicking camps when I was doing them back in the day. So, we were the twins. We were the dark-skinned twins. But we would still get the cat calls, even in the National Football League. So for a lot of times, I would keep my helmet on and hoping people think that I was just a dark-skinned white boy. But, the things that you had to endure, racism and bias and prejudice, it's still prevalent. And it's so amazing that we've come full circle, and you look at what's happening in society today. When you're young, all you want to do is be. And that's who we were. We played with the kids across the track. We played with the kids from the other neighborhoods. But it was the grown-ups who instilled their views, the laws of first truths. That's what we were struggling with. Because Papa wouldn't tell me, no lie, but Papa, I've been playing with Greg and his boys from across the track, and they good people. Papa, so what's happening here? So the racism and prejudice, it's embedded, it's taught. You're not born with it. So if it's learned, it can be unlearned. And it's up to us. It's up to all of us. Hey man, whether you black, white, blue, or green, when you cut, we all bleed. When you get hit, we all hurt. If you say God is your father, then I'm your brother. Then if I'm your brother, then why are you treating me this way?
Heard. Truth and facts. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to switch gears, but I don't, because I want to stay on that, because when I think of Jacksonville and I think of the historic Ritz Theater And when I think of Jacksonville, I think of Axe Handle Saturday. And I think of the community that cultivated and nurtured the next generation. So everything that everything that you're saying is just resonating on a different level, because as you said, Papa, these are good friends, but at the end of the day, Papa and the other Papas were part of and know what happened.
Absolutely.
Lived through what happened.
You know, it's so incredibly amazing that what took place on January 6th at the nation's capital. Some of those folks are business people. They're CEOs, they're accountants. They're people that live in our community and even cheer us on Sunday. But something has shaped them to the point that they would have this insurrection against people of color and other folks. I mean, you talk about growing up here in Jacksonville, but I got to tell you, 38th in Chicago, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a place that I called home for many, many years. The corner where George Floyd was murdered years ago, I bought a very dear friend of mine, a pastor friend of mine from Jacksonville, Florida, Bishop Von McLaughlin, up on that same corner. We had an outdoor camp meeting. Several of the Vikings were there, Chris Carter, Warren Moon, so many others. We were ministering there on that corner of 38th and Chicago, and blocks away in the Metrodome, Billy Graham was ministering to thousands in the cool confines. It was the heart of the summer. While Billy Graham was ministering in the Metrodomes, we were ducking bullets on that same corner, ministering to the neighborhood on that same block where George Floyd lost his life. In Minneapolis being the tipping point of a lot of unrest, where people were saying enough is enough. See, only a few people saw the highlights of Dr. King and John Lewis walking across the Pettus Bridge. I was fortunate enough to walk across that bridge on the 50th anniversary and just close my eyes and could see the water hoses and the dogs and the batons by the police. But America had a front row seat with a police officer on the neck of George Floyd. And haven't we come, aren't we better than this? It's sad, but it's where we are. But we are a resilient people. We are a resilient community. We are a resilient culture of people. That we're going to be okay. But it's going to take hard work, and it's going to take all of us. It's going to take those of us who are long in the tooth with your generation coming together, blending mind, heart, and soul, and technology and will, and all of those things. And we've got to follow the sages of our generation because they have so much wisdom. But it's going to take all of us, white, black, blue, green, together. What happened on January 6th should never, ever, and it cannot ever happen again. It's just like when the Twin Towers went down. We all came together.
Yes.
We've got to come together again as a community. We've got to shift the atmosphere because we knew what it took for us to get out of those places where we were. We shift cultures. And all it takes is one man. Who says that one man, one person doesn't make a difference? One play makes a difference. Coaches always talk about one play. And I'll give you this football metaphor. A couple of years ago, Vikings were playing the New Orleans Saints playoff game at US Bank Stadium. We're behind, 10 seconds left. Case Keenum goes in the huddle. He says, I'm going to give somebody an opportunity to do something great because all it takes is one play. He goes in and he calls a play. Buffalo right, 7-heaven. He backs up, slings it to Stephon Diggs. Diggsy goes up, makes a phenomenal catch. The DB goes under it. He spins around, puts his hand on the ground. I got a ringside seat. I'm right there. and I point Diggsy in the right direction. And people say, well, why did you point him? I said, anytime you spin around, you can get disoriented. He put his hand in the ground, and I say, this way, son. We beat the New Orleans Saints with one play because everybody believed. And Jimmy, I'm a man of faith. And I believe that my destiny was set before me before I even put on a pair of cleats. But I had to believe that. And I had to have hope. And I've always said, my tagline is hope is the gasoline that fuels your faith. Because without faith, you have nothing.
Mm. And you also said, never give up and don't lose hope. No matter how many doors get closed in your face, I believe that when a door is closed, God will open up a window.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that with all of my being. With all of my being. You know, Matthew 17:20 says that, and I keep one of these in my pocket. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a little mustard seed.
Okay.
And he says that if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Man, we all have mountains in our lives. But you just take that little teeny bit of mustard seed faith, and whatever mountain you're facing, mountain is going to get out of your way, or God is going to give you the ability to climb that mountain. But it's going to take others along the way, along that journey, because there's an old African proverb, you know, there's a path that's always cut to the house of God. And when grass grows up on your path, those who care about you, they will come and they will say, hey, brother, I see you. There's grass on your path. Enough said. We need to get back on the straight and narrow. And we all need those people in our lives. I still have them today because we all need people. And God will put them in your direction. He will put them in you'll put them in your stead. Now it's up to you. You have a choice. We all have free will. But we all have golden opportunities. And I was not going to let this golden opportunity pass me by. I was going to do everything that I could because I believed, I had hope, and I had faith.
Well, I want to thank you so much for this rich conversation of faith, family, and of course, football.
You know, I have so many people to thank, but let me close with this.
Yes, sir.
And a very dear friend of mine, he was one of my mentors at Cleveland. His name is Gerald Irons. He was a linebacker that played for the Raiders and finished his career in Cleveland. And Gerald went to Morgan State, HBCU. But Gerald said, Coleman, you inspired me to write this. And he gave me permission to share it. And it's called Be the Best. To be the best is my quest. Athletes come and athletes go, but there's something very special about being a pro. To be the best is my quest. So on and on, I'll strive while keeping my championship hopes alive. And let us not forget the day-to-day concentration, for it'll help make us the best in the nation. To be the best is my quest. Now, everything mentioned, everything needed, I cannot mention, but I hope the things that I've said is not beyond your retention. So be the best. There were so many people who poured things into me. And whatever I do, I want to be the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first African-American punter in NFL history, Mr. Greg Coleman, right here on The Mission. I thank you so much, sir.
No, thank you, sir. I really appreciate you.
You don't know how this has really impacted all of us today. And that's what from this series. That's what we
Well,
want from this series. And thank you. Thank you.
I thank you because you have the platform to share these stories. There's so many other men and women who have great stories to share. And if we don't share our stories, our history, our legacy with our young people, they would just think that they got there by themselves. But as I mentioned from the top, nobody gets to the top of the mountain. If you see a turtle standing on the top of a fence and he said he got there by himself, he's lying through his teeth, because it took somebody else to give him a helping hand to get to the top. Man, so thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll be able to talk again soon.
I can't wait for the next time, Mr. Coleman. I really
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.